And let me finish tonight with this heretical thought. Was Michael Steele right? Let's start with Bernard Charbonnet, former New Orleans Port Authority chairman who's in New Orleans, and Michael Pampantonio, an attorney representing Gulf area businesses and fishermen affected by the oil spill. Mr. Charbonnet, this is the question on the table. The president's policy, which he's fighting in court right now, we haven't got a ruling yet today. He's going to keep fighting it even if he loses. He wants a moratorium of at least 6 months on deep water drilling. Where are you on that one?
I can't vote with the president on this one, Chris. The federal judge is right on point. This goes to the very core of our economy. There's 7,500 direct or related jobs associated with oil drilling. We are an exploration and production state. We're not an administrative state. Administration takes place in Houston. We drill and we work here. And for years, oil and fishing worked hand in hand. There was a collaboration that worked well. Now we need recalibration, no question about it. And we got some dark days ahead. But at the end of the day, I don't believe we're going to get a decision today. This is a 3-judge panel. It's going to take a while for them to write up their decisions. I don't see us with anything today, maybe in the next couple of days.
Let me ask you this. If an airplane crashed because all the doors fell off, would you let it fly again, that airline?
Well, certainly. You see, what we're doing is throwing the baby out. No, you said
certainly. You would let an airplane go up in the air again. Well, not that airline. Okay, so you'd like to see a moratorium on BP only?
No, I'd like to see strict scrutiny on all oil rigs. I'd like to see them go over and have security affidavits on each and every oil rig. But at the end of the day, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You can't shut down every oil rig. You can go out and you can strictly look at each one for each and every safety mechanism that should be in place.
Well, this baby's called BP. Let's get that straight. Would you let BP go into deep water again with drilling?
No.
Okay, let me ask you about, would you trust Ken Salazar over at Interior? Would you trust his administration of the minerals management over there? Minerals management, would you trust it over there? The way that the services, the way they've handled this, the appointments they've made over there under President Obama's watch, do you trust them to regulate deep water drilling?
I think Ken Salazar needs to take a hard look at his whole office. He's laden with people from the old administration, and he's got to get real tough. Do I trust Ken Salazar? I don't think the jury's out on him yet.
Well, I think the jury is looking very closely at this case. Let me go to Mike Pampantonio, who's looking tough, and he may be the worst jury you ever had. Mike, it seems to me the question is on the table. The oil industry, we're supposedly watching the deep water operation, supposedly looking at the permits to see if they're really filled out right. This person was hired by this administration and then in the middle of the night pulled away and somehow isn't there anymore, but the president won't even say he knew that she was fired. So it is on their watch that this all happened. My question to you, do you trust Salazar? Do you trust his management of minerals management services?
Salazar needs to be fired, Chris. Look, when Salazar came into office, we all knew what he was. He was an industry hack. This is the same Ken Salazar, if you think about it, that voted to end the moratorium on drilling in the ocean. He's the same Salazar who actually had the audacity to say that we should not end Exxon's subsidies in a year that Exxon was making $30 or $40 billion. This man is an industry hack. He didn't do anything to change the problems that he knew about when he came into office. When he came into office, he already knew that the agency had experienced a sex and drug scandal. He knew that he had an agency that had such a close relationship with petroleum that the agency was holding golf junkets and ski junkets in exotic places around the world. He knew the agency was dysfunctional. It had been put together by James Watt in 1982. It had not changed. Dick Cheney had actually made it. Yeah, it is. James Watt, if you remember, he's the guy that started this agency. Nothing has changed since James Watt came in and said, I'm going to form this agency with my buddies from Wyoming. It's an incredible story, Chris. The incredible story is
Bernard Charbonnet.
Salazar.
All new to me,
Mr. Charbonnet, something. Let me ask you something about that may not be new, and therefore you have a problem. We know that this was not regulated, this industry. We know that BP got away with murder. We know it's all their fault, but we know they weren't regulated. Has anything, to your knowledge, changed to stop drill, baby, drill, meaning spill, baby, spill?
No. Nothing's changed.
Well, then how can you support drill, baby, drill without knowing we're going to get more spill, baby, spill?
The only thing that's happening now is that we've got to review the permits for all deep water oil rigs that have to be restarted. That's the only thing that's changed at this point. I support drilling because I support the people who live in Louisiana who desperately need those jobs. It's just that simple. But I do not support, the lack of safety on oil rigs. That would be unacceptable. Okay.
Mike, the problem is that the permit that was filled out by BP said that they were able to handle a spill of exponential size of the one that we're facing right now. In other words, an even bigger spill. They lied. They lied. They admit now that they tried deep kill, they tried cap and whatever. I can't remember the number of attempts they've tried now, but they were all fresh attempts. Cut and cap, deep kill. Now they're going with the relief wells. We don't know if any of this is going to work. So we don't know if any of it's going to work. And yet they claim they can do it.
Chris, we assume that they can't do it. We assume once we learned that they phonied up their application, they actually lied to the U.S. Justice Department. They lied to the federal government. They said first of all, that it was an operation that could handle about 10 times the spill that we have here. More importantly, if you look at that, they actually had a dead scientist sign off on the document and represent that dead scientist had a plan. Look, from day one, we have to handle.
How did they move his hand? How did they handle this? How did they have the dead scientist sign this document? I'm curious. In all seriousness, you said a dead guy did something.
A dead guy. They had a dead guy sign off on this document, Chris.
Meaning they used his signature. Meaning they used his signature.
They used his name. They used his report just as if he were alive and kicking. Listen, this is a company that we have to look at for who they are. This is a felon company. They have shown nothing but a history of lying to us from day one. Day one, we knew that we had a catastrophe.
Well, let's go back to Mr. Bernard Charbonnet has a real problem on his hands, and you do have a problem. You have unemployed, hardworking people who've done nothing wrong except do their job, and now they're stuck with, the fish rots from the top, as I think Michael Dukakis used to say. And the question is, if the fish is rotting from the top, and you've got BP and the other corporations not being responsible in terms of safety, not following good management protocols, I don't blame things on machines and blowout preventers. I blame management for making decisions on, drilling mud and on whether the cement is hard enough and whether they really do the job and follow the protocols and really go deep enough in terms of safety. They're the people I blame from day one. I don't blame machinery because machinery doesn't make the profits. And the question is, how do you, in good conscience, Mr. Charbonnet, even though you want your workers back, wouldn't we be better off just paying them full salary and not putting them back to work so we don't have to do this cleanup again?
Yes, on its face for sure. But you got to realize that with a deep water rig, most of them are mobile. And they're mostly called jackup rigs. When you move a jackup rig and it's inoperative for a long period of time, that rig moves to Brazil or some other place. At that point, it's not coming back in 6 months. It's working in Brazil at that point. So our people are still juxtaposed between safety and a job.
I got you.
That's the problem in a nutshell.
Well, I have one extra problem here. I'm going to go to Mike on this for a final question. 27,000 wells out there have been apparently capped, like manhole covers, sealed over with cement. And apparently the regulation of those dormant wells is no better than what we've seen here with BP. What is your view of that? Do we face a really serious problem out there in terms of failure to regulate by MMS, by Salazar, by the Interior Department?
The same people, the same silk suits who were telling us that the horizon was not a problem are telling us that these 27,000 rigs that are dormant out there are not a problem. The truth is nobody's inspecting. There's no regulation really that's being used to find out whether they're deteriorating. We have no idea when one goes bad, Chris. We have the same mineral management people that are dysfunctional, that are basically criminal, that are overseeing. They're overseeing. It's a potential disaster.
Bernard, I respect completely your opinion. I may disagree with it. We're going to wait and see how the courts are ruling, where the president stands. Mike Pampantoni, as always, gentlemen, thank you. My view of this, for the conservatives watching right now, think hard. When you eat a can of tuna and you want to make sure it doesn't have ptomaine in it or something, don't you like a little regulation occasionally? When you get on an airplane, don't you like to know that that plane's been checked for safety? Don't you like to know there's been double checking? So you got to think about regulation, whether it's good or bad. It's not essentially bad. It could be essentially good. Think about it when you're dumping on government the next time.